This is a production of WTVI PBS Charlotte.
The following episode of Trail of History is brought to you by Central Piedmont Community College and viewers like you. Thank you.
And from Bragg Financial Advisors, a family-owned wealth management firm providing investment management and tax and estate planning for families, individuals, and institutions for nearly 50 years. Committed to our clients, to education, and our community.
Hello, I'm Tony Zeiss, president of Central Piedmont Community College. You know, the rich and diverse history of the Charlotte region is just wonderful, and we at the college want to bring it to you and share it. We understand the importance of history. We understand the importance of learning from the past so that we can do better in the future. I want to tell you that you're in for a real treat. The History Department at Central Piedmont Community College has partnered with our television station to bring you this special, one-of-a-kind history program. Stay tuned. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it.
Charlotte's skyline today is filled by steel and glass. But when European settlers first arrived more than 260 years ago, freshwater creeks and trading paths highlighted the landscape. King Hagler and Thomas Sprat were leaders of their respective peoples, and the encounter of the Scots-Irish settlers and the native Catawba Indians is now commemorated in bronze.
A small furnace heats bronze to over 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit. Foundry workers don heat-resistant suits as they prepare for dangerous work. They monitor the process closely, skimming off impurities from the liquid metal. Then, in an orchestrated maneuver that they will repeat dozens of times, the molten bronze pours over the lip of the crucible into the waiting mold. And moments later, a few hammer blows, pieces from the ceramic mold cracking away, revealing one small piece of the statue to honor contemporaries King Hagler, a Catawba chief, and Thomas Sprat, a Scots-Irish settler.
When the first English or Europeans came into this area around 1750, the only people that were here were the Catawba Indians. They had been here for millennia. Their major town was centered where the Sugar Creek falls into the Catawba River, which is near Fort Mill, South Carolina today.
Most Scots-Irish immigrants to the American colonies came ashore at Philadelphia. By the mid-1700s, as the Pennsylvania backcountry became more densely populated, new arrivals found opportunity further south along the Great Wagon Road. The news of cheap land and friendly Indian tribes in the Carolinas lured settlers south. Often entire families or church congregations made the journey together down from Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Delaware.
Many of them stopped along that trading path at the top of a hill where eventually the city of Charlotte was built. The Catawbas were universally friendly to the settlers, siding with the royal governor against the other Indian tribes and protecting the Europeans from incursions by the Shawnee, who were their deadly enemy from New York State, who came down here on war parties, and the Cherokees over in the mountains, who were sometimes friends and sometimes not to the English settlers.
I think what a lot of people don't fully understand is the Scots, when they came into the area, they sort of have a similar background to Native people, so it was an easy convergence between Scots and Native people.
The elder Thomas Spratt and his family moved to the area in 1750. He built a home on land close to where Presbyterian Hospital stands today. This stone monument on Randolph Road marks where the house once stood. According to local historian Jim Williams, Thomas Spratt Sr. purchased a total of 3 tracts of land. One of the parcels was along 12 Mile Creek to the south of Charlotte near the Catawba tribal settlement. Spratt's son, also named Thomas, farmed the 12 Mile Creek land and eventually inherited it after the death of his father in 1757. This was just a few years after a significant moment in the history of the Catawba, when King Hagler became the new chief. Dr. Winona Hare is the executive director of the Catawba Cultural Preservation Project.
He took over after a leader called Young Warrior was killed. And that's the way our leadership usually was. It was by the tribal consent.
King Hagler was in his late 20s or early 30s when he became the leader of the Catawba. But the origin of his title remains a mystery.
The Catawbas were already here, obviously, and they had their own structure of government. But when you had the King of England and all of the kings and leaders and the European contact coming over, well, not to be outdone, tribal, leaders took on the name king for a while, and then it changed into chiefs as time went on. So it was sort of like a government-to-government type of relationship. If you've got a king, we've got one too.
King Hagler was a war captain. I'll give you a definition of a war captain. War captain was one who led men in battle, and to achieve that status, you had to be very good.
Didn't just tell his warriors to go into battle, he actually led the battle, which nowadays is practically unheard of. And he also was a politician, if I may say the word, with integrity. He, by one of the South Carolina governors of the colonial times, actually stated that King Hagler had a sterling character, just in his dealings, and was true to his word.
King Hagler understood that he could not shelter the people from the culture of their new neighbors. The Catawba would have to adapt.
Assimilation is all about trying to maintain part of your culture, but knowing that you cannot be out there on the forefront with it.
He took his job very seriously, but the softer side of him is he cared very deeply about his people. He was actually one of the first Catawba rulers who petitioned the South Carolina governing officials to ask them to stop the sale of alcohol to his people. He could see that it was causing health problems. He could see that it was causing them to sign treaties which gave away the land that they lived on, and they weren't providing for their families.
The younger Thomas Spratt moved to his father's land along 12 Mile Creek in 1753. It's here where his relationship with the Catawba took root. He went on war parties and hunting parties with the Catawba, and according to historians, was given the Indian name Kanawha, its meaning unknown. By this time, however, the massive influx of European settlers into the area started to have an impact on the Catawba's friendly way of life. King Hagler negotiated with the colonial government and signed the Treaty of Pine Tree Hill in 1760.
It got to be that they really saw that eventually they would have no land left. So they petitioned the governors, the governor of both North and South Carolina, to grant them a piece of land. Well, they didn't get all they wanted, but they got a piece of land that was 15 miles on a side, which is 225 square miles, which is pretty much York County, South Carolina today.
Thomas Spratt's farm now sat inside the new boundaries defined in the Pine Tree Hill Treaty, and like other affected settlers, had to lease the land from the Catawbas. For the rest of his life, Thomas Spratt lived on the 12 Mile Creek land. He continued to help the Catawba as an advisor and liaison to the world of the settlers. Spratt died in 1807. King Hagler, however, did not fare as well. Historians believe a Shawnee war party ambushed and killed King Hagler in 1763. Charlotte-based sculptor Chaz Fagan applies and smooths soft clay over a wire skeleton.
This one is it's just another great story, another Charlotte story, a story of Thomas Spratt and King Hagler.
But Fagan began with the research before ever touching the clay. His key questions: who were King Hagler and Thomas Spratt, and what did they look like?
Well, I was hoping that there'd be some more true historical visuals that I could use. So something directly to Mr. Spratt or to Hagler.
No known paintings of either man exist. Fagan must interpret and piece together a puzzle. He even unearths nuggets of information in records kept by the young George Washington while serving in the Virginia militia.
My job was to try to find out if I can't get actual visuals of the Catawbas from the 1750s, what can I get? And I was able to find lists of inventory of gifts, so trade gifts and trade goods. And then even better, requested trade goods by King Hagler. So you have a list of goods that he wants and he needs, and there it is in black and white. And some of these actually came out of the Washington papers too. So it was really fascinating stuff.
He uses the inventory of items to determine the clothing and accessories for the statue, which at this early stage is only about 2 feet tall. Fagan is working on a maquette, a French word meaning scale model. The purpose?
The early stage just means putting it up there and figuring out what's wrong. So for me, I'll be looking at everything that's wrong and proportions and changes. And I always refer to as sausage making. And it's the fun part for some people to see, but not necessarily the most artistic. But it all starts just like any kind of sketch or drawing. It starts with a stick figure.
The maquette stage is not about aesthetics.
On the art side, for me, this whole stage, from now until the details get a little finer and I'm more relaxed on the likenesses and things, it's constantly just looking to see what the mistakes are.
The maquette complete, Fagan transitions from his home studio in Charlotte to Carolina Bronze Sculpture. The foundry provides ample space for sculpting the full-size figures.
Oh, it's exciting. A lot of clay has been moved around and we now have 7.5 foot tall figures. The faces are a lot bigger than life, and there's a lot more life and energy you can put in it. There's emotion. And King Hagler, you'll see that depending on your angle, you've got either warmth of an expression like about to smile, or then suddenly he looks pretty stern. And that was just a question of just sliding in a little, little wrinkle around the eye, a little bit more of a pinch around the nose, and from different angles, it reads differently. I enjoy the energy that I've got in the maquette. There's a lot of movement that you can see in the flow of the clothing and things like that I wanted in there. And now comes the stage where you're trying to do the same thing, but your hands are smaller relative to the clay in the space. So now you're using your whole palm and things to try to get movement again. And then just trying to capture it and hold it, because what inevitably happens is you have to smooth it out and clean up edges and cuts and overlaps of clay. And you could just end up wiping out all that energy. So you're always trying to just push it back in, slip in some more, and maybe add some strokes, whatever it is. There's so much texture in it that it's been so much fun to play with, like the different, you can see the wool versus the leather versus the skin. All those things have been really great, and they offer instant variety so that when they're ready, they're ready. I don't have to go back in and play again.
And when they're ready, Fagan hands the process off and the artisans at the foundry take over. They use an ancient method called the lost wax process to turn this sculpture of clay into bronze.
This clay will be finished and I will hand it off, and that's the hardest part for me. When I hand it off, the foundry will then take it and they will take a mold of that clay. The mold is now done with silicone rubber, so it captures every little detail, fingerprint, everything. And then the next layer is plaster. And now you have These plaster outside, rubber inside molds that you open up and take out the clay and close back up again. You now have a negative rubber mold. In that negative rubber mold, you paint in or pour in molten wax. That wax is now a wax positive of what you had, so it looks pretty much identical to what it was in clay. The guys at the foundry plan ahead with various, they call them sprues, that are wax tubes, and a funnel basic shape thing that will eventually be how they pour the metal into the space. That entire now octopus looking piece of wax is then taken to a slurry. So you're left with a now ceramic hard shell in which the metal can now be poured. Metal's poured into the shell is hammered away, you're left with a raw metal. Oh, I love it. It's the classic, reveal moment where you're unveiling it again and freeing it again. It's very dramatic, I love it. It's the culmination of all the work that went into it to get to that stage. So it's not just, I saw it last in clay, and then it got reworked by these guys here at the foundry, and it becomes the wax. Then it gets reworked again, and they get it to the shell, and then you pour it, and now what you've finally seen is that final surface, the way it will look after all that. So they're sawing off the spruce, so sawing off those now bars of solid metal that were the tubes. So all the extra stuff that wasn't supposed to be there is gone. And they're filling in little holes and gaps and things that happen. The finer work, on the art side, happens when we're piecing it back together. And they haven't even told me how many pieces there are, because we have too many. But so make it 50 pieces that have to get back together again. And that's the next big hurdle for me, is trying to piece them all together and make it look like the same powerful stance of figures standing on a rock.
"7:20 a.m. on Charlotte's Little Sugar Creek Greenway, Installation Day. The first order of business? Move the 14,000-pound carved stone base into place. Workers maneuver the granite mass until it rests, perfectly level. Just after 9 a.m., the crew turn their attention from the stone to the finished statue. Heavy straps tighten under the weight, and the driver positions it over the base. Next, workers thread anchor rods into the feet of each figure. The length must be accurate, or the statue will not stand correctly. Lowering it with gentle precision, finally bronze meets stone. The two 7.5-foot tall figures are now secure. Fagan had originally envisioned the statue standing on a natural boulder pulled from the Catawba River, but engineers said no.
So we had to get one from a quarry, and that meant getting a generic rectangular block and then carving it up to look like a real rock. And for that, I got a great rock guy named Clint Button to come and help with that. But the idea there was to make it look like an actual rock, so a glacier rock that was cut on one side and ground on the other by the glacier, etc. And if you were to stand at the edge of that rock, this beginning of the slope, and look down, you'll see carved in the rock the line, like the aerial map view of the Catawba River, Sugar Creek, and the original settlement of the Catawbas. There are also these petroglyphs, so these images that I was able to glean from other Native American sources and tailor them to be within the generic of Catawba. And they include turtle and a snake, particularly for Catawbas, and a fish.
Welcome to another historic day in Charlotte as we dedicate these permanent commemorative bronze statues to two of our earliest leaders of our region. The Trail of History Board that puts these statues together and raises the money and then gifts them to the county are very pleased to gift this latest historical art project to Mecklenburg County and the Parks and Recreation Department.
On May 26th, 1756, King Hagler spoke these words: "I look upon the English and ourselves as many good things put into one pocket." I love that line. I was asked just a second ago how long this project took. I don't know. I never pay attention to that because of the amount of effort you put into it. But what happens with this type of project is you get to know the figures so well that you feel like they're real. And that's part of the magic and the fun that makes it exciting every time. I just couldn't get over the irony that here I was trying to make a statue of a great friendship, and all I can think of is, man, I'd like to have those guys as my friends.
On behalf of the Catawba Indian Nation, I would like to thank Mr. Fagan for the marvelous depiction of King Hagler. He did not have an easy job, for as you see, there are no known pictures of King Hagler. So how does one have an idea what he would have looked like? Well, to me, the answer is to look at some of the things said about him and some of the actions he took as a leader and his character. He was a friend, obviously, to Mr. Spratt. He led his warriors into battle on many occasions. That says a lot about him. He didn't just say go, he led. But I would like for individuals who come and view these statues to get out of looking at the statues is two things. I'd like the curiosity so that people would take the time to do more research on these two men. King Hagler was an amazing individual, and we've only scratched the surface. There are many more things about him and much detail that can be found about his life. The second, I would like to encourage you to come to the Catawba Reservation and see our people and learn that we are not extinct. We live today with a very proud heritage, and we would enjoy receiving you as visitors.
This statue is a stirring tribute to Thomas Spratt, fit for one who was the first to settle Mecklenburg County. It's not just to him alone. Many hardy pioneers followed his footsteps into the Carolinas and showed the world what men and women, self-governing, could accomplish in a free land. It was a powerful lesson. If we pay tribute to Thomas Spratt, the second, or junior, whatever you want to call him, we owe even more to his friend King Hagler. He welcomed Thomas Spratt here and set an example of comity and friendship that could have changed history had it been followed.
Becky is lighting some sage, and it's called a smudging ceremony. Basically, a ceremony to honor someone. She's honoring, of course, their great leader.
I hope they will look at the statues. Many of them won't realize who, other than the names that they read. I hope that will spark them to go do some research, read about these two individuals, and there's a volume of information about King Hagler, and he's just a very fascinating individual and very complex. And so I would hope that it would spark some curiosity. I would also hope that it makes them want to learn a little bit more about the ancestors that are living today.
Well, it recognizes members of the family that braved the unknown and came here 200 years ago. And when they got here, made friends with the Indians, not enemies, but friends. And they had a constructive relationship for years and years to come.
Normally, the quick answer is always that I'm happy that they're where they're supposed to be, where they're in their final home. But with these two guys, to see them actually standing on that rock is the big accomplishment. Because as bronze standing on rock, it actually looks like they are. So I'm just particularly pleased with that. And the one thing I'm looking forward to is when it's all quiet and you can actually enjoy the pieces a little bit, is to see them from a distance and then walk up closer and closer and really experience them.
Today, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg region is very diverse. This statue of King Hagler and Thomas Spratt reminds us that diversity has long been a strength of our community, with people from various backgrounds learning to work together for the benefit of all.
A production of WTVI PBS Charlotte.